looking at the anatomy of the bones of the muscles, excuse me, of the cat, and also the functions that those muscles serve. We're going to be comparing those to the human body, but this is how we are going to study these muscles and where they're located. So this first part, there are going to be some structures that aren't considered to be muscles, but I still want you to be able to identify them on the cat and tell me the function of each of those different structures. So the very first structure is the tongue. I think we all know what the tongue is for. It helps us talk. It helps us do a couple of different things, but it also assists in chewing. It allows for food to be kind of pushed towards the teeth and then towards the throat. The hard palate is basically the roof of your mouth that is made out of bone. There are different bones that make up the hard palate, but when we're talking about a function of the hard palate, it's the it allows us to make certain sounds because your tongue is resting or forcing itself up onto the hard palate. The hard palate is also the portion of the roof of your mouth that is kind of bumpy, and right behind that is something called the soft palate, and that is if you run your tongue past the bumpy part, it will then feel more like just skin as opposed to a bone underneath, and that is responsible for closing off the nasal passages during the act of swallowing. And you have a little uvula that dangles off of that and helps in its function. Then we have the trachea. The trachea is responsible for allowing us to breathe. So it is the tube that allows for air to get from our mouth to our lungs. Now we're into the actual muscles that you guys will be identifying. There are many other muscles in the human body and in the cat, but I just basically made a list of the ones that we will be identifying and having a practical over. The first one is the masseter. If you close your mouth, if you close your jaw, and feel basically where you would think your cheeks are, as you close your jaw, you feel kind of a hardness in that muscle, and that is the masseter, and so it allows you to actually close your jaw and then chew. The digastric is more in the neck, and it helps to elevate the hyoid bone and helps depress the mandible. Then we have something called a sternohyoid, and sometimes the names will give you a good idea of where they're located. So we know sternum, and we know where the hyoid bone is. And so what this does, so it's in that general region, and what it does is depresses the hyoid and the larynx. The larynx is your voice box. Then you have something called the sternomastoid. Again, sterno, we're dealing with the sternum. So it helps you pull your head to one side, and then it also pulls your head towards your chest and raises your sternum. Then we have something called the temporalis, and the temporalis is at your temples, if you know, by the temporal bone, and it helps to also close your jaw, but it elevates your mandible. Then we have something called the trunk muscles, and so the trunk muscles are going to be in the trunk of the body, and we have our rectus abdominis, and you guys know it more as abs. If you want the six-pack abs, this is the muscle, or this is part of the muscle group that you are going to be working on. But what it does is it flexes your lumbar region of your vertebral column. Then you have your latissimus dorsi, and you guys probably call it your lats, and you've done lat pull downs, so you kind of know where these are, but it helps extend and adduct arm and rotate humerus inwardly. Now, when we're talking about different motions of the body, there are opposites. An adduct means bringing towards the midline of the body, and abduct means away. So this is allowing your arm to come toward your body, and it also pulls your shoulder downward. And then last but not least, for the trunk muscles that I'm going to ask you guys to identify, are the pectoralis minor and the pectoralis major, and you guys know them as your pecs. The pectoralis minor, the only reason why it's called minor is because it's above it's below the major, sorry. And it pulls your scapula anteriorly and downward. And then the pectoralis major pulls arm anteriorly and across the chest. And it rotates your humerus and adducts the arm again. Then you've got your spinotrapezius. And so on the cat, the traps are a little bit different than ours, which I will explain. They actually have numerous traps and we do not. But they have a spinotrapezius which helps raise the scapula.